Hey everybody, what's up? Coach Kev back again. A little bit of a 10-day or so hiatus. Been getting a lot of good information with Flora and then some other fires that have happened in Carroll County, and keep it coming. Talk about that in a second. Start off. Here I am in PA. Gonna be really cold tomorrow, like stupid cold. High 18, low 6. Of course, I'll be working. Fun. Uh, Hopefully nothing goes down. I've been at fires before over the years where we've left the hose on the ground because it's froze to the ground. Uh, Inherently, the fire hose is going to leak in places through gaskets and stuff like that. And when it's cold, they shrink a little bit, even though they're really not kind of supposed to. But there's little holes and they stick to the ground. We've left fire hose on the ground and came back the next day and got and just blocked the street. Hopefully, we're not doing any of that tomorrow. Hopefully everyone stays safe in their house and warms their homes responsibly and doesn't do anything crazy. Super Bowl set. We talked about some football. Got to talk on Facebook to my buddy Frank Meister about the hiring of their former coach out there in Indianapolis. Got hired with Carolina. He thought it was a bit of a reach. Me too. We'll see who they get. But it should be a good Super Bowl. Mahomes should be a lot healthier than he was. Ric Flair's been taking Brock Purdy to task, man. He shared a tweet, said, I was in an airplane crash, getting the game. But now we know that Purdy's going to miss the whole next season, too, if you didn't hear Tommy John surgery. So the guy was actually hurt. So Meow's in. She's hooked me up with some good people that are doing some research on Flora, a lot smarter than me, some really college, highly educated folks. So that's good that we have that. I could be some brawn. You guys could be some brains. Lola, hi Lola. All right, couple updates here. Again, Delphi is what kind of brought me into everything. The bond response, I'm sure you've read that. There's a lot of other creators that do a better job of covering all that than I do. So use them. Basically, what they said is that what we stand on our PC. This is enough. I don't think this guy's getting out of jail. There's no way. They can't let that happen. He doesn't go to court, I think, if they let him out. I think someone takes things in their own hands, and you shouldn't do that. But, hey, emotions run high in a situation like that. So Flora, nothing official from Flora. Imagine that. Another week of no news or no updates. I've been going back and I've been watching old press clips and old interviews from different people, especially Doug Carter. Just, is there anything that we could find out in there? And as we get into this here a little bit today and we start talking about arson types and stuff like that, I think we can X a couple out, and clearly it was declared arson. There was some confusion early on between one of the original investigators, who also happened to be the fire chief's dad, and didn't find multiple points of origin. Many other investigators came in and actually wrote on the behalf of the girls in the family and says, hey, listen, there's something's up here. And they got a hold of the state. And that we'll get a little bit more into that. And as we move on further, I hope to do some lives with some people. 10 p.m. at Fox Yoder's dash cam. That's 10. Is that 10 o'clock Central? I know Indiana is a state that has multiple time zones. We'll be out of here by then. We have to be. My Aunt Jackie's stopping up to hang out, going on their cruise. Wow. Now, what part of the dash we'll have to see. Anything helps. Anything helps. I was talking to somebody in private chat, Flora. We're going to get in the floor right now. I'll just get in the floor right now since we're talking about it. In some private chats, and they were saying about they'd heard, some people had said about fire on the dining room table. I saw reports on some things that I've received. There were official documents that said that they didn't see a fire going in. The two law enforcement officers who weren't dressed in fire gear. And those kind of fires are scary because you could see the smoke pushing and you can't tell where it's coming from necessarily. And usually in a situation like that, the fire is kind of starved of oxygen or air. And, by breaking the windows and everything, you invited a lot more into it. But we were just talking, we were doing a fire extinguisher training at a church/daycare. When I was telling my girlfriend, my kids went there, probably, I don't know how many guys in the department's kids went there, really good church daycare type thing. And as our deputy was explaining, they talked about the Backdraft movie. And Backdraft, the old movie that everyone saw. Whenever I was in fire school, I was always taught the movie should have been called Flashover, because Flashover is actually what's happening in a lot of those scenes in that movie where everything in the room ignites at one time. So just imagine that. And everything in the room spontaneously igniting at one time. Now, in a backdraft situation, and I, knock on wood, can't even say that I've seen any of my career. I've seen flashovers quite a bit, more than I'd like to admit. But you don't really see a flame because it's starved of oxygen. The smoke's there. You might see an ember or like an orange glow, but you don't actually see a flame. And as soon as you open up a door or pop a window and oxygen is introduced, it's like you pour an accelerant into the fire. It's a part of what makes up a fire. So it is, and it works faster than a liquid accelerant would. It's air, so it's just going in there. And what I think happened was a blowtorch effect through the house, and you could see where the burn came from. You could see where the fire started, and the fire moved toward the windows that were broken in the front. You could see the windows. If you look at the pictures, you could tell the windows that were broken. In the windows, a lot of times they were vented by the fire, if any windows were vented by the fire. Some windows that were covered, there's no black around them whatsoever, and they're first floor windows. That tells me that people broke those windows. There wasn't fire there. Now, the top windows with the black around it, you'll see the soot around it. Those could have been called self-vented, where it got so hot the windows actually expired and blew out. That happens too. But wherever you see a window and you don't see with a board around it, or a window that was clearly broken out, and you don't see black around it, unless there was some kind of explosion in that house, like a gas explosion or something like that. We were talking about in a group chat today about gas explosion. That's going to be a window that was broken out. So maybe that window shouldn't have been broken out. Maybe it should have been. I don't know. Apparently what happened, and we'll see what the dash cam gives us, but I'm very interested. Now, if you know if that's a 10 o'clock Eastern or Central news. I think a lot of the news times go in with the Eastern time zone. I remember when I was following court proceedings and stuff like that, it was the same as mine. But anyways, so so we're talking about types of arsons and arsonists and their motives. And there's 6 of them that are listed officially. 6 of them are vandalism, excitement, revenge, crime concealment, profit, and extremism. Overall, I could give you just a little bit on each thing. Vandalism. So here's a story about vandalism when I was working. So I go into work with my current deputy chief now, Ed, and if I wasn't on his crew, then I was working a midnight shift. And way back when, the midnight shifts were good to get. Maybe you could go in and get some sleep and get overtime. But more times than not, you don't get to. This was one of those times. It's about 12:15. Midnight shift starts at 12. We get called for a fire at an auto or a garage that stored vehicles. So on the way over the bridge, this place is really close to the station. We go over one river, and we're in the area. It's called Lower 10th Ward, is the neighborhood. And this place is just burning. And there's cars and there's metal. It was one of my first fires where I saw burning metal, where we hit it with water and you would see white sparks shoot out, blue sparks shoot out, like almost like if you ever saw the Rihanna video for Umbrella, that's what it looked like, the inside of this place. It was really wild. We had to cut the door open and everything else. As we're there, me, my buddy Chris was the driver, and our deputy Ed, as we're at that scene, we get toned out for another fire a couple blocks down the street. Sure enough, it's an abandoned house and it's burning. So the engine, we have a truck working with a deputy chief and a deputy's rig, and the engine, which is I usually work on out in the park. So as the engine comes in, we just tell them, take that house. We'll work this building. We call everybody in, all the overtime guys, all the off-duty, the volunteers that help us, everyone we call in. In the meantime, a third house lights off, all in the same area. This is all within probably a 4-block radius in one neighborhood. And it turned out it's a kid. Okay, so it's a kid, and he's whatever got a bug up his ass that night to do stuff. So it was more a vandalism issue with this kid. As we found out later, it was just like a rebel against authority. He was pissed off about some things that had happened. It wasn't the last one. It was his excitement, which we'll talk about when we get here in a little bit. But that was my story about that. That was just, and it was crazy. There was 3 fires. They all came in, I think, within 20 minutes of each other. And the kid, if we weren't so close there on the third one already, he got better with each one. Even though the first one wasn't lit that well, but what was in the building, it was a good choice for him to light his fire because all the chemicals and stuff like that. The second one was a little bit more, and the third one was lit really, like an arsonist, a professional arsonist, or someone that's done it before. So he in a 20-minute period matured from lighting my first fire to lighting my third fire, and he got better at it. And the police literally caught him coming out of the house. And that's one of the ways you can catch arsonists. It's hard to catch them. And they caught him, and he gave it up, and he had some gripe, or whatever. And I don't even know if he's done anything else after. Hopefully he didn't. No one was hurt. It was a mess that night. That overtime shift was from 12 to 8 a.m. and I don't think I got home till about 10. So got a little more overtime, even though I didn't want it. Excitement here. Okay, I've mentioned this before, and we talked about the McDonald triad, the homicidal triad. Is it still in use? Is it not? For a lot of reasons, yeah. You can look at people and say, "Here you go." Son of Sam, David Berkowitz. Son of Sam lit 1,411 nuisance fires or small fires. I got that stat today. And he said what he got to do toward the end is when the firemen would show up and they would do their thing, he'd lay somewhere and masturbate. And I don't know. I don't know how he got off on that, but that's what he did. But that's 1,400 fires before killing people. So that was the excitement. So what's the excitement? The excitement is, oh, hey, and I saw out with the juvenile. Yeah, this is when his younger days, before he actually expanded into being what he turned out to be. So, he did some craziness there. 1,400 fires, and never, anytime he got caught, I don't know the exact details, but there was a few run-ins where they were able to say, hey, this was the guy that did A, B, and C. And it was kind of like, oh, hey, one of these things, one of those things. So, but yeah, he was really, really into it. And as other guys were, and if you had uresis, bedwetting, cruelty to animals, especially the bedwetting after 12, or if they regressed where they were at some point, trained and then went backwards. I'm looking for an article I have here off to the side of my phone. I will pull up here in a second about another guy who was, he was out there. Yeah, John Orr. We'll get to John Orr in a second. They actually made a movie about him. So excitement, revenge. Revenge, another one in the lower 10th Ward, same neighborhood. We had a family that was murdered by a guy, and it was over a beef that he had with the dad. And what he did was he lit a roll of paper towels and just threw it into the house. Well, in the house was dad, mom, and several kids. Dad was, there was a person that was disabled, and needless to say, dad got out of the house and continuously tried to run back in despite, the police attempt to hold him out. And in the police attempt to hold him out, the police officers actually, got the guy's skin all over their hands because one of them was my brother, because of he was just burnt to that point, but he was going to go back in. So this guy had some beef, lit paper towels, threw them in a house. It murdered these people. So that's a revenge factor. A famous one was Julio Gonzalez in the Bronx, the Happy Land social club, the after hours club. His girlfriend was a hat check girl there. They were having some kind of romantic beef, and he burned that place down and killed, I'm not sure the exact number of people, but it was I think 60, 70 people, upwards of that. So revenge, you know what I mean? You're just mad at somebody. I've seen revenge where and for whatever reason, there's a lot more women that do it than men. Women burn guys' shit. They burn it in a bathtub. They'll burn it outside. They don't try to burn the house down, but they don't realize when they burn the stuff in the bathtub that the house is going to fill with smoke. Because what are they burning? They're burning possessions, clothes, shoes, try to burn shoes sometimes. They're hard to catch on fire, but when they do catch, the rubber and that stuff, a lot of black smoke's going to fill the house. So I've seen that before. I've seen guys do plenty of stupid stuff, and a lot of times it's a lot more violent than burning stuff. But you go back to the from TLC, Lisa Lopez. She was burning Andre Rise and her boyfriend or husband at the time stuff in a bathtub and caught that mansion on fire. Didn't mean to catch the house on fire. I don't think she did. I think she was just saying, I'm going to burn some of your shit because you're being a jack off or whatever the case was. Crime concealment. So let's say that someone does a murder, and it's very easy for the coroner to tell if that person was killed before the fire, after the fire, or things like that. And here's how they basically figure it out. Most of you probably already know this or have heard of this. If there is carbon monoxide, soot, any type of inhalant they can inhale from something off-gassing or burning in their lungs, then they know that person was alive at that point. Maybe they were hurt or injured or shot or stabbed before, but they were alive at that point. So the time of death can be kind of zoned in on. If the person has nothing in their lungs, then they were clearly there, and that was probably 99% of the time that fire was lit to conceal that. If they directly burn the body, so let's say they light the house on fire, but they just torch the body. They want to make sure the body's burned. They can still tell if with tests that they do. Not all the time. If someone's burned beyond recognition, then maybe there's nothing you can do. But there's still a ton of things they can do to tell. So that could be a crime concealment thing. Try to do that. Profit. You heard me say before, the pros, the professionals. These people that are professionals do this for money. They have a MO, something that works for them. Like serial killers, they get better. Their MO could change a little bit or maybe drastically, but once they find something that works for them, they're going to continue to do it, something that doesn't get them caught. They don't want to hurt people. They don't want to light anything on fire with humans or even pets in it. They want to destroy the property that they're paid to destroy. They really don't want to do any additional property or any additional things like that. If you have one house that couldn't sell, that somehow catches on fire, the firemen show up, put it out, I don't know what happened. It's one of them things. There ain't going to be a whole lot of investigation to it. Hey, it doesn't look bad. Let's just pay this guy out and put the property back on the tax rolls or whatever it is that you're going to do from there. But if you burn a neighborhood down, or if you have a business that's between two other businesses and you burn that business and now this one, so there's going to be a lot more investigation. So these people, they're criminals and they have their thing that they do, and this is their thing, and they burn stuff for money. And you can find them on a black market. A guy at a bar whispers to another guy, hey, this is a guy here, help you get rid of stuff. And a lot of these guys don't want to hurt people. There are professionals that will do stuff while people are in the house, but those are you don't usually see those. I have never seen those. I've heard stories, not necessarily around here, but country-wise and nationally. So that's a possibility too. Extremism. A guy in the late 90s that was lighting fires, Joe Debe, was an animal rights type advocate. He lit a meat pack on fire in Oregon. Extremism, any kind of religious thing where, let's say, one group of religious people go and they attack another group of religious people's property or a church, and they want to do some kind of a fire to it, or a incendiary bomb or some kind of incendiary device. People that do things to abortion clinics, that's an extremism, regardless of how your feeling is on that issue. So anytime someone has an issue and there's another group of people that don't agree with that issue, they will light things on fire. That happens during our protest, riots, whatever you want to call them, whatever parameters you set on them. When people light things on fire, that would fall in that extremism, to me, more so than a vandalism. And now if you have people that are just going out, like let's say a bunch of kids, there's a football team wins, they light stuff on fire. To me, that's vandalism. Like Philadelphia, okay? Philadelphia, whenever they just did it. They greased the poles with hydraulic fluid and grease, and the people still climbing. There's people that fell through a bus stop. But if they light something on fire, that's not an extremism. They're not making a religious statement. They're probably drunk off their asses and the Eagles won and that's their team. And could you call that a riot? Sure. what is it? I don't know what it is, but that's not extreme. That would be a vandalism thing. But that extremism is, someone, there's a mission there. They want to prove a point. They're not out. They're not just getting off at the fire. They're not going to stay and watch the firemen arrive. They're going to get out of Dodge. They want to get away with what they will get away with. Then you might see a letter or something like that saying, hey, we did this and this is why we did this. And if you don't do X, Y, and Z, we're going to continue to do more things. So, hey, kid. Okay, on to Flora. And with what I know about it, and again, without seeing any video, it's really hard. If I could see any kind of video of any kind of development of that fire and what happened after the windows were blown out, I think I know what happens, and I think it would be a confirmation for me. But I can't go out and say, hey, this is really what happened. And I'm sure, I would assume that the investigative agencies and the powers that be have seen that video and know, seen obviously a lot more than I have seen. So we will, hold that for right now. But could that have been a vandalism? I don't think it'd be a vandalism because we talked about professionals, and if people are vandalizing stuff, they don't want to hurt people. Okay. The kid, for instance, the story that I told, he went through that area and there was property and there was cars, and he was from that area and he probably knew there was cars in there. And I don't know if he ever had a grudge against any of the houses that were lit off. 2 of them were vacant. I don't even know if they were owned by the same people. But I don't think that's a vandalism situation. I really don't. I think that there's a lot of targets in that area. If you're a kid and you want to light stuff on fire, you're not going to light a house on fire. You're going to be from that area, and you're not going to light a house on fire that little kids are in. You're just not going to do that. There's plenty of vacant properties or things like that. So I don't think that's the case. Okay, number 2 is excitement. We talked about the excitement. People are getting off on it. Excitement would encompass a firefighter, a law enforcement officer, somebody, first responder that gets into the arson side of things. And there's a guy we're going to talk about here. We might as well talk about now, a guy named John Orr. And Ray Liotta was in a movie about John Orr. And I had the name of the movie, and I can't remember what it was called, but he's an arson investigator. Okay. He was out in California. Let me find this for store. He hoped to be a Los Angeles police officer. He didn't make the cut. Sound familiar, huh? And again, they're innocent until proven guilty. Koberger, so many of these guys were wannabe cops or were cops and then, kind of weighed their way out of the job. He was an investigator. The coworkers always thought he was strange. He chased down shoplifters and burglars in his fire truck. Okay, talk about power, talk about a hero complex, shoplifter and a burglar in a fire truck. Yeah, I don't know. They ended up calling him the Pillow Pyro because of the way he would light his devices. He used the same for all his blazes. What he did was he had a cigarette. He attached it to a book of matches, wrapped it in paper with cotton and bedding, hence the nickname, secured with a rubber band. So he'd light the cigarette, and that would be his timer, or his he knows that cigarette's going to burn in 2 to 3 minutes. That's when the fire is going to start, and fire basically doubles in size if it's unchecked every minute. So he can figure out in roughly 12 minutes, this place is going to be 50% burnt, or whatever the case was. And being an arson investigator, he kind of knew the tricks. So he got away with it for quite a while. Where Mr. Orr made a mistake was, and this guy just could not help himself. These people can't help themselves. Okay. During an arson investigators conference in Bakersfield, California, January 87, several suspicious fires broke out. And one of the fires, investigators found a single fingerprint on a piece of notebook paper. 2 years later, the fire investigators conference in Pacific Grove, guess what? Another outbreak of fires. This guy could not help himself. He could not help himself when all those fire minds were together, lighting fires under their noses, proving he's the smartest guy in the room. Well, he wasn't the smartest guy in the room, clearly. He then wanted to write a movie, okay? And he wrote a manuscript. It was called Point of Origin. That might have been the name of the movie, too. I'm not exactly sure. Liotta was in it, and he played the guy. It was bizarre, but based on a true story. A good movie, if you have the opportunity. So basically, through his manuscript, he wrote to Aaron, who basically was himself. That was the arson investigator in the book. To Aaron, the smoke was beautiful, causing his heart rate to quicken and his breath to come in shallow gasp. He was trying to control his outward appearance to look normal to anyone around him. He relaxed and partially stroked his erection while watching the fire. This is what the guy wrote in his manuscript. So again, go back to Berkowitz. How does that? I don't know. I see a lot of fires and I've never had that reaction. Oh shit, goddamn. I guess we're not sleeping tonight. Those have been my reactions. That I've never had a reaction to. But it's a similar thing that these serial killers get reactions to. So it's bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre, but it's intriguing too. Like what causes that to happen? So that was that Orr guy. And again, if the guy wasn't such an idiot and he could not resist lighting fires at these conferences, you have the best investigators in California at these conferences. This is what these guys do. Okay. This is their, this is their whole existence for being, is what they're doing there. And this guy cannot resist lighting fires while they're all there. You don't think they're going to talk? You don't think someone from the local department's going to say, hey, why don't you come have a look at this? Because it does happen. I mean, you're not going to ask the best people there. Of course you are. So go there. Okay. Revenge. Let's get back to revenge when we talk Flora. Okay. Crime concealment. I wouldn't say crime concealment. You could actually rule it out, but there's nothing that I saw in the autopsy reports or things like that. There was any kind of the crime concealment that needed to be made. I don't think there was anything that happened in the house where there was a crime concealment. Without every piece of data, I would say more than likely no. I would not rule it out, but I would say more than likely no. I feel comfortable about ruling the other ones out. Profit. So was it a professional job? Could that have been done for profit? Purely for profit? No. Okay. Purely for profit. They're not going to light a house on fire, especially with little girls in it, with little kids in it. They're just not going to do that. And I'm not saying because they're good people or because they care. They don't want that kind of heat. Now, if you're investigating a murder, there's going to be a lot more things that are done, multiple murder, a lot more steps that are taken to apprehend whoever did this than if someone just lit an abandoned house or something like that on fire. I'm not saying they're not going to investigate. They do, but come on. Okay. So I don't think so. I've heard all kind of different theories and rumors from people that are close. I don't have any proof of any of it. There's some of them are very interesting, but right now, today we're on a stand. I would have to say, I would have to say no on that. Okay. For me right now. Extremism. Yeah. I don't think extremism can be ruled out here. I'm going to just come out and say it flatly. I've read many statements that people supposedly have made, no proof that they've made them, but I've heard the same people making multiple questionable statements about race. And where there's smoke, there's fire. Nothing is on the record. Nothing is anything like that. People that I'm talking to, have feelings about people that were investigating this case and into this case. And do they just not like those people, or what they telling me is true about it? I think that the people that I'm talking to, they're very clear about how they feel about others. And I don't think anything that they've given me so far has not been true. Some of it's been opinionated. They think this, they think that, but it's a lot of good information. So I cannot wipe that extremism off of there. And let me explain the extremism thing. Could it have caused the fire? Sure, maybe. Could it have done something with the investigation? Could it have not have been investigated maybe a way that if another subculture of people were killed in a fire, that they would have investigated? That's possible too. So that whole situation could have been treated differently if it was a different race of people, any kind of thing like that. Okay. I can't rule that out. We've had bad things happen in my area with race over the years, as everywhere has had. That area in Indiana has had quite a bit of strife. I've got a lot of information from people that do a lot of really good research on it and sent me stuff. So I don't think that you can absolutely rule that out at all. So let's go back up. And again, with the vandalism thing, I think we could say that that's my opinion. We could say that's out, right? Excitement. I don't see the excitement either. Revenge. If it was a revenge thing, sometimes revenge, it blinds you, like it did in that instance I told you in the 10th Ward fire where the guy lit the paper towels and threw them in the building. I'm sure if that guy had it to do over, he wouldn't do it. I'm sure he was zonked out or tooted up on whatever he was at the time. But he did not intend to kill those people. He's still a piece of human shit for what he did, and what he did killed those people, so he needs to serve his time, and he made some plea deal. He made a plea deal, and I'm not sure the exact time, but it is even nearly what it should be, but maybe another show I'll rail against the justice system. But so revenge, you could do really bad things revenge-wise. Now, you have a fire with multiple points of origin. Multiple points of origin, not always, usually lead me to think of somebody set a plan out. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. A revenge thing, like I just told you, a guy lit paper towels on fire. He was so pissed off, threw them in a house. Other situations, we've had people that have lit houses on fire where they poured gas and they've caught the people and they've went and got the gas right before they went to the fire, and they're on the camera 5 minutes before a mile down the street at the gas station. So it's kind of hard, that rush. I'm real mad. And could that be a love thing? Sure. I've seen it. Love things. I've seen drug rips. People owe people money. Usually it's a family thing though. When it's that harsh. But in this area, witnessing against people, you might see stuff like that. Usually that results in gunfire. Usually the fire and the stuff like that, not always, but usually where they just show up and dump gasoline in places or just haphazardly light a quick fire because they're pissed off. That's like a love thing. You have multiple points of origin here, despite the first investigator not finding that. All the other ones did. So I think it's more of a laid out situation here, whatever happened in this arson situation. Doug Carter said the person that lit the fire did not want to kill the girls, he thinks. So obviously they have a suspect, they have a motive. What they don't have is proof. I've heard through people that I've talked to that know Galen, that know police, that know people in the area, that there's some kind of disconnect there. Different people have told me different reasons for it. Their opinion is on this, their opinion is on that, and they, this person, that person. I don't know enough about to comment on it here, but if there's any way that that connection could be made, again, I don't think that could hurt the case. And I've said before about Doug, and people have talked, said a lot about him, good and bad. I think his heart's in the right place, and I think when he told you the story about his dad on his deathbed, telling him not to become jaded like he did, meaning Doug's father became jaded because all the shit he saw. That's an opening of your heart. You don't make something like that up. That's a sharing. That's like, I want you to look inside. So we could argue tactics with him. That's fine. That's fair. You're a public figure. He should have done this. He should have done that. And remember too, Doug Carter's not feet on the ground, boots on the ground, investigating this every day. Hey, Dave. Dave's everywhere. I forget what I was watching yesterday. There was two lives I was watching. Neither, that's Kyrie's tail that popped up. Neither was live when I was watching it, but I saw Dave pop in. And yeah. But anyways, I think Doug's a good guy. So I'm not going to head of his fan club, but as far as a good heart, I think it's there. But listen to what he says. Go back and some of my liked videos on my page, just some of the interviews where he talks about Flora. He brings Flora up when they're talking about Delphi. So Doug feels like, well, there's all this attention on Delphi. And you know what? Is it because they're white girls? I don't know. Is it because of the method of the way that they died that we're not even sure of? But maybe it's Kyrie here. But maybe it could be all those things. But he kind of brings it back, which I thought that was cool, because in the one press conference that I have the video there, they're not talking about Flora. They're talking about Delphi, and he totally brings Flora up. So I think it's in his heart. But if there's any way that we could get, Galen and Doug in a room to talk, or even not in a room, on a phone or through a message, or just any type of thing like that, to open up a line of communication. If it leads to the end, us finding out what we need to find out, and the people that did this locked up, then it's worth it. Dave doesn't like the Lakers. Sorry, Dave. I do a lot. A huge Kobe fan. My son Colton's name was almost Kobe. My dog's name's Kyrie because they're basketball fans. You know, we've had him about 5 years, a little before Kyrie went off. Speak your mind, guy, but he maybe went off deep end a little bit with some things, but he's a good dog. But anyways, the revenge thing. So yeah, that's a possibility. Now, who would have the revenge? Okay, there's things that I've read that, you know, I need to do more research, but there's people that have talked to various members of law enforcement that within the same statement have told 3 or 4 different things about time. I woke up at this time. I left at this time. I always woke up at this time. I always left at that. And nobody ever, when they're interviewing them, says, well, wait a minute. And the people that they have in the interview, it's odd. It's bizarre. But I'm working on it, believe me. And people keep sending me stuff because I think something in there is going to tell us at least what they think. Okay? What they think, what the police think. Dave is a Celtics fan. Well, I'll tell you what, Dave, if the commissioner of the NBA could have it his way, I think he would have the Lakers and the Celtics play in the final every year. East versus West, what a rivalry, huh? Everyone would watch it. Even if you hated both teams, you would watch it, you know. Yeah. So that's the revenge thing. I don't think we can rule that out. I'm getting a lot of good information on that, and it's a bad road to go down because it means human beings did something to get back at somebody or to get back at something, and they killed 4 little girls for it. So crime concealment. The crime concealment, I don't see that at all. And again, I read the autopsy reports. I saw everything like that, but I don't. Okay, Meow's responding to Kennedy. Yeah, 10 o'clock. Meow, is that 10 o'clock East? Do you know? What time is it now? I don't know. Maybe this pushing has helped. And I'm not saying that my 90 subscribers, maybe they have, but maybe just this pushing and, you know, the stuff that Meow's been doing, and there's some other creators. Yeah, it is. It's awful. It is. You're right. I'm with you there, Dave. But we'll be out of here way before then, so you guys will be able to get your stuff ready. And wow, I can't wait to see that, or what they give us on it or whatever. That's very interesting to me. So again, crime concealment, from what I know, I'm going to say no. We talked profit, and now, again, the profit, I don't see it. Could someone have profited later down the line off of this? Well, they did. I'm not saying that the person that profited or the people that profited lit this fire in any way, shape, or form, but they did. There was insurances and things like that. So anyways, extremism. Extremism encompasses racism too. Could this have been a race-related thing? And I know people today, like, we're so sick and tired of hearing about race. Well, I am too. But when you're looking at something like this and you're looking at that area and some of the people that have come up over and over again, talking to people, I mean, I'm talking to people that don't like each other, okay? But they have like, well, this guy here is interesting. You should look into him, or you should find out about him. So regardless of their motives for talking to me, that it's the same people who are brought up. And then some of them have a checkered past. And you just look more and more into it. And I would say no names whatsoever at this point, but I have a list of people that are, you know, I just need some things answered. Maybe the things could be easily answered. And someone could say, oh no, this is why this happened here. If you're not from around here, you probably never heard of Turner's tea before. It's not good for you, but it tastes good. It's a local Western Pennsylvania thing. We drink tea out of a carton. I think I've been anywhere else in the world that's done that. It's better that way. Anyways, can't rule out the extremism. I don't think so. I think that is at some point is going to come into play here, whether it was the cause, the reason someone did something, or the reason someone had a gripe against Galen and those girls during the beginning, before the fire, the reason for the fire or during the investigative process. And, she moved away. And a lot of people would say, oh, people that do things like that, they move away. Well, yeah, that's true. And that's one of the reasons Koberger got caught. But that's not always the case. I think that she just felt like that place just had some very evil people and bad vibes, and she had to get away from it. Who knows what any of us would have done in that situation. I probably would have wanted to move to a different hemisphere to get away from that and those feelings. So, but that's from what people that know her and the people that know people around there feel that's just like, it's just, and then Carter makes the comment, and Meow had the video with the gravel lot and like that general area. And I've asked people to send me information about fires and things in that area, and they have. And just going through all the stuff, and there's a lot of good newspaper articles, and there's a lot of good stuff in newspapers. You read the articles and you find things out. And a lot of times, especially going back into some things that have happened in the 90s and early 2000s, cops or firemen would sometimes make guesses. Hey, it looks like it might have been this. Now you don't do any of that. You don't say anything. You turn over to fire marshal. Hey, we showed up. Yeah, Dave. Kristen, yeah, behind the crime door. Absolutely. She's always post her stuff on Reddit whenever it's coming up. So I like to cruise around there. I'm glad that I see that. And she has Steve on sometimes. She had someone else on. I can't remember who else she had. She had John Kelly on, or she had someone else on. I was really excited to see it. But just the pressure, the constant pressure. So hopefully tonight, if this thing, and it's probably going to be, I would assume it's a good story. They're hyping it up, it looks like here from what everybody's saying. Share that on your social media. Get that out there, whatever it is. I have been going around on Facebook. I've gotten some names from people. Hey, check this person out. Check that person out. And I've made some interesting connections. Some people are friends. People are still policemen. They're still, because so. Oh, thanks, Dave. That'd be cool. Yeah, I've watched her with the Delphi. I got into her with that, and then some other things. And then, of course, everybody loves Steve at True Crime Web, and he was on. And, okay, these guys are friends. And, and there's, I have a talk real briefly at the end about some YouTube creator stuff. No would ever beef with anyone or mention names, but actually that's the reason I want to talk about it. So again, with vandalism, the 6 reasons. Vandalism, no. I'm going to say no. Excitement, I don't think so either, because with my experience in the cases that I've read, they're not, they're not burning people's houses with people in them. They don't want to hurt people. They absolutely don't want to hurt people. They just want to get their jollies off. Dave's 100% right. Even current creators, if they always say, if you have a podcast that you watch, hey, if you guys have anything new, anything that you guys want me to cover, mention Flora. And anyone I mention Flora to, they're just like instantly pissed off. Like, what, are you kidding me? Especially people in the emergency services community, firemen. They're like, are you nuts? They did what? Yeah. So things are done with goodwill. They're not always done with ill will, but a litany of things, there's too much. 1 or 2 things, mistakes are made, but when there's something that goes on and on and on, someone got some explaining to do in that situation. Again, vandalism and excitement are 1 and 2. Revenge, that's possible. I think that's a possibility. Crime concealment, I don't see it. Profit, the professionals, I don't see it. Extremism. So I'm down to revenge and extremism. Could be a crossover of the two, not in the technical words speaking of what they would say, but if we were just people talking that weren't, arson investigators, which I'm not, or people that use these terms all the time, then yeah, I could see how you could see they overlap. But it's possible that it was something that happened to cause that fire, and that fire and the investigation of it was treated differently because of who was affected. Okay. I'm not saying I know that for sure, but you can't rule that out until someone could show me that I'm wrong or that that's not a possibility. Then that's something I'm going to have to work. and run it down. Hopefully I can run it down and say, no, that's not what happened. Because that would mean there's some BS going on from people in the community that are trusted. And hopefully that is not the case at all. Okay. Yep. Kennedy's right. So do what you can, you know what I mean? And then you say you share something on your Facebook page and someone says, hey, what is this? And they ask you about it. And you're like, hey, just, look at this. Tell me what you think. And send them something on it. Same thing with any cases that you're into. Eventually here, you get a little bit of a following. I'd like to get some local cases that we have in our town that are unsolved and bring local people that I know personally closure. But there's things here every day, work on something, think about it. If there was 10 million YouTube creators doing what I'm doing here, there'd be a lot more cases solved. Because there was 10 million more, there'd be 100 million more that listen to it, that spread the word, that maybe information goes in front of somebody. Everyone's big issue with Delphi was they had all this information. They didn't want to let it out. They said, well, if you'd have said this, we would have known. If you'd have said that, we would have known, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they would have, maybe they didn't. I just read something where it was a case, I think, from the 90s in Boston where they let a T-shirt out. That was, 30 years ago. Who's going to remember a goddamn tank top T-shirt from 30 years ago? Why wouldn't you release it before? Or if you have information in a case that's 30 years old, put it all out. What you've done for 30 years hasn't worked. So, but again, that's a fine line, I guess, with police officers, and I'm not that. Yeah, so many unsolved. You're right. And if you look and starting to do statistical work, clearance rates, a lot of places, most places, I shouldn't say most, and I know that for sure, but a lot of places, they're under 50%. Like the national clearance rate was like 42% or something. So most cases are not solved. I haven't looked at data for this year, but it's sad. Well, Dave's on to something maybe in Massachusetts too. Yeah, there's stuff that's going on. You hear the Chicago Strangler, New York, Long Island, whatever's happening. We don't know. And it's always estimated. And I just read this too. I keep saying read this. There's 200 to 300 working a year. I was talking to a guy at work and I was giving him my serial killer spiel. And he's a younger guy, so he had to listen to it. He couldn't get up and leave. And he says, well, how come there were so many serial killers in the 70s and there's no more today? And I says, well, they estimate that there's 200 to 300 today. And we haven't put it together that they're actual serial killers, or they haven't caught them. They can't put a name to them yet. So that's another thing. So, but anyways, the main thing that I want to talk about was different motives. And I have more examples here as we go forward of different people, of what they've done. But the Orr guy is very interesting. John Orr. And like I said, Ray Liotta, maybe it was Point of Origin, maybe it was the movie. Okay. What about revenge, but wasn't meant for Galen or his family, but whoever did it, so bad info, like they thought it was someone else who looked the same. That's absolutely a possibility. That's a possibility. And what I said before, one of the other ones, thanks for the comment. And what I said before, one of the other ones was the only way that I could ever see that being a professional job, in my opinion, from what I know, is if they thought that no one was going to be there that night. That's why I said, did she work nights? Were the kids, certain nights they're going to go here, or they're going to stay at a friend, or whatever the case may be. I've seen situations where people have burned their own property and not realized that people were home. They weren't supposed to be home. And, so yes, is that a possibility? Absolutely. You would think with something like that somebody would feel so bad about that they would have told someone, and the way that worked out, someone would have told, you would have hoped, maybe not, maybe they could keep their mouth shut, but how bad would you feel? But absolutely possible. So I'm not seeing those other things. Again, with what I know, I'm going to get out of here in a few. It gives us plenty of time. And if Meow got back or not, if that's 10 o'clock Eastern or not. If you have an opportunity, Meow, to pop that in there, let us know if that's 10 Eastern. And that's the Fox. Yeah, if anyone's still out there, someone share that again for me. Let me put up here. 10 o'clock. A lot of chat tonight. Fox 59. So we will see. That's odd though that like right now that comes out, right? I don't know. It's good, but what's happening? Is there something happening? Did they feel it necessary to bring that out right now? I think it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing that that's coming out. Okay. So we talked about the various things, the vandal or the motives for arson that people have. And this is what they give us. I actually got this from Firehouse, and on my preview video, Meow commented 6 types. You obviously already knew that. There's a lot of good reading. Firehouse is a magazine. It's sent to fire stations all over the place. We always get 2 or 3, but there's pretty good articles. So if you ever come across one, it's firehouse.com. It's pretty good. It's an insider kind of magazine, so you could feel pretty comfortable with that. But you could do a lot of research on arsons. I talked before about serial killers and arsons. We find it's control. It's a power thing with a lot of them. So, okay. So profit, crime, concealment, vandalism, in my opinion, and excitement, I think we could say those aren't. So we're back to revenge and extremism, really, in my opinion. One of those 2 things, I think, is what killed those girls. So that's how I'm going to investigate it from that angle. And there's an old, I don't even know what the name of the theory was, but you take those things and you try to prove yourself wrong. So I'm going to process right now and trying to prove what I think is right wrong. Once I can't prove that wrong, then I come back and it's like, well, maybe I'm right. You know, that's one way to do an investigative analysis. Yeah, Dave, definitely listen. I'm going to be hooked on that here tonight. I'm definitely going to check that out. Okay. So I want to thank everyone that came in tonight. I don't want to keep these too long. So we're right around the 50-minute mark. Everyone stays warm this weekend. And in the talks, shared, let's see, Meow, I got something up here. Share the link on Meow. Okay. So Flora 4, if on Reddit, and Meow's channel has it too. I'll figure out here once I'm done how to do it on mine. And I think pretty sure I follow that Fox 59 anyway on YouTube. So I actually, once I'm done here, I'm going to check out their little teaser video there. Yeah, Dave. Yeah. And what I learned from talking to the fire marshals is they have a couple of specifics. Allegheny County does the investigation in my area if there's a fire. So they have specific arson dogs. And the arson dog will hit, it'll sit down. The ones that I've seen when it smells an accelerant. So they're trained for certain type of work. Now I've seen police dogs that they can't smell or detect arson dogs. They're drug dogs. Then you might have a bomb dog. So I don't know the ins and outs of all the dogs, but I know the dogs that we get are strictly arson dogs. So if you were, if there was a fire there and you're standing there and a dog walked past you to go in the house and you got like a bag of weed in your pocket, he's not going to stop and like look at his partner and, hey, he's not going to sit. He's not going to alert. He's going to go past you. But if he smells that accelerant in there, and it's a complicated process. If you want to know more, I could find more out, or maybe even try to get somebody up one time. There's a guy that we work with. It's a part-time guy. I think he does training, but I think it's more for cadaver dogs. So maybe that's a guy that could be interesting in talking about sense and what could have happened in Delphi. That's kind of a sad thing if they would have had the dogs and whatever. For another day. But hopefully Meow, the other people that I'm talking to now, please keep sending me the information. I sent them a bunch of pictures of fires that I had. That was in the video, a lot of that stuff. Those were all arson fires, by the way. Sometimes arsonists are good and sometimes it's amateur hour, and much rather it be amateur hour. We could get in there and we can knock out their work really fast, get back to the station where we can continue to drink coffee and swear, which is 2 of my favorite things to do when I'm at work with my friends. Anyways, speaking of gas, I'll leave you with my story of the night. Story of the night is about my buddy who I work with now. I won't say his name. Great guy, really good in the community, great with kids. I have a PhD in talking, And there's times where at scenes or at calls, I keep talking to people and I'm like, come on, Kev, get in the truck, let's go. Well, this guy talks even more to me sometimes. And if I'm telling you, let's get out of here, we talked to these people long enough, let's let them go about their day, then it's pretty bad. But we had a fire, and it was a guy, he since passed away. He was a tremendous, great guy. He was a plumber. He did some work at my house for me. He had a fire at his house, and it was kind of like, it wasn't shift change, but it was like we were only home for like a half an hour. So a lot of the guys that were working just came right back. And it was so about 9 a.m., 8:45 in the morning, and fire's going good. We get him out of the house. Me and another guy go in front. We have our bottles. So we would finish one bottle, and you take another bottle, and you go head back. Usually after you did 2 bottles, which is not necessarily recommended by the NFPA, but you do what you have to do. After the second bottle, then you would take your break, get a drink, sit down, hang out. So we're getting our second bottle put on, and we look behind the back of the house, and we hear like, whoosh, and it's like mushroom cloud goes up behind the house. And I look at him, and he looks at me, and we kind of run behind the house like, what's going on here? Well, there's a gas can, and it's just melted beyond belief, and it's just burning. You know what I mean? It's funny because you could hear the gas cans like disintegrate, and you could hear the air like hissing out of it, like little gas squirting out of it. It's pretty funny. Well, it's funny because no one got hurt. And then the story from the guys was they dove into the burning building that was on fire to avoid the gas can that was burning outside, because my buddy thought, yeah, hey, I'm going to go ahead and kick this gas can out of the way, get it out of our way, because it's like, as soon as he kicked it, it just, so it went up. So it was kind of like a fireball. But that was today's story. So I hope everybody enjoyed it. Thanks for hanging out tonight. Again, I on my YouTube page, it has my Gmail email, but Kevlar148 at Hotmail. So same thing, it's on there, but Hotmail, I'll find a way to put that out there too. I'm getting a lot of good stuff. I'm on Reddit too, all over the place. You know, I don't hide my name. I'm not afraid that anyone will dox me, because I will just dox myself instead. How about that? Everyone knows who I am. So, we got one more comment here. We got brevity, staying on topic. Thank you very much. Yeah, I can get off topic very easy. So I have my notes here today, and I know I did that last time a little more than I wanted to. I was very passionate about what I was talking about, but you know, we just keep more topic this thing. Maybe if we get to the point where we can have like, you know, a once a month podcast that I listen to, I'm a big wrestling fan, they'll have like Ask Tony Schiavone anything, or Ask Arn Anderson anything, and they'll get comments throughout the weeks or whatever, or live, and it's really awesome because it's off the wall shit. But you know, we're not there yet. But if you had like questions like that, fire related, maybe we could do something like that. You know, keep fire related questions, do my best to answer them for you. And if I can't get the answer, I will. If I don't have an answer, I'll get it for you. Thanks, Dave. I'm sure I'll be seeing you somewhere tonight. I'll be bouncing around YouTube shortly. But thanks, everybody. If you're in my area, in the Northeast, stay warm this weekend. It's going to be, like we say, cold as chuck. And if you're doing any firefighting, have extra gloves. And Groundhog's Day, as my girlfriend reminds me. And I don't know. I think Groundhog's Day is a work. I'm 43. I've lived in Western Pennsylvania for 43 years. And it's always cold for 6 more weeks after February 2nd. Sometimes 10 more weeks. So I don't know. Maybe we'll get lucky. We'll see. But enjoy the weekend, everybody. I'll be back next week with something. I'm hoping to do something with Meow and a couple other people too. We could really do a deep dive into Flora, and hopefully that can come around. Dave must be around my age to get those movie references. Yeah, it's a funny movie. Okay, everybody. Thanks again, and anything you got question-wise or whatever, you could leave here or put on my page at any time, or email me. Keep the information coming, and let's watch this thing at 10 o'clock tonight. Let's get it out there. Just keep spreading the word. Push, 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 push. Eventually, they're going to have to do something. Before I leave you here, unrelated to the topic, I was able to figure out how to do a video capture on my phone. I'm 43 and I figured it out. And the video capture is actually the Richard Ramirez in a lineup. I don't know if any of you guys have saw this before, but this is really something different. So have a look. I'll play it twice for you, then I'm going to get out of here. Creepy as all hell. Richard Ramirez in his lineup here. So here we go.
Where's the money? Where's the money? Where's the jewelry?